He's throwing us under the bus, all of us. He's a coward. He's a coward. He's not a leader. He's a coward.
What's going on, you guys? We have Jim Jordan wanting to clear Donald Trump's name of all Epstein implication. Brian Tyler Cohen is roasting the hell out of him. Let's get into it.
What I know is they didn't release parts of the transcript. They released the whole transcript. And you know, so you can go through the whole thing. And of course, this confirms what we all knew. If the Democrats, if President Trump had done something wrong, you don't think the Democrats would have released that? I mean, it was their Justice Department who handled all this. You don't think the Garland Justice Department and the Chris Wray FBI would have released information? We knew President Trump didn't do anything wrong here. He said that repeatedly. This transcript is the whole transcript, and it confirms that. So. Yeah, I think this is there's nothing there. It seems based on what we got from the interview of Miss Maxwell.
Let me just offer some free advice to Republicans, and I don't do this often, but this one's on me. If you're trying to convince people that the Republican president is not implicated with pedophile sex traffickers who he is clearly implicated with, perhaps the best person to make that case is not Jim Jordan, who is best known for ignoring the sexual abuse and molestation of hundreds of wrestlers at the hands of a team doctor while he was wrestling coach at Ohio State University. Just, you know, for starters. In fact, because Jim Jordan has decided that this is a hill worth dying on, perhaps it's worth re-upping the testimony of one of those wrestlers who's spoken out about his coach's proclivity to ignore sex crimes.
Jim Jordan called me crying. Groveling on the 4th of July, begging me to go against my brother. Begging me. Crying for a half hour. That's the kind of cover-ups that's going on there. Jim Jordan called me several times after that. That week, I had to have my lawyer call him, tell him to stop calling me. I had a teammate, George Pardos, I called and told him, call Jim Jordan and tell him to quit calling me or I'm going to beat his ass. He's throwing us under the bus, all of us. He's a coward. He's a coward. He's not a leader. He's a coward. I'm a leader. I was captain of these guys. That's why I'm here. I would never abandon my team. He abandoned us. Our head coach abandoned us. He's flipped his story. He called other people to flip their story. He called Mark Coleman to flip his story. He called his parents, 90 years old. That's the kind of person Jim Jordan is.
But sure, Jim Jordan is definitely the guy you want on air convincing people that they're taking sex crimes seriously.
And Jim Jordan's going to continue to yell, there's nothing here at all. He thinks that if he yells loud enough that people will forget who he is, forget where he comes from, that he has ignored sexual abuse on his own team. This is actual hypocrisy at its peak.
Jordan goes on to say that for years, Democrats and Joe Biden did nothing about this story. And look, he's right. This was not a big issue on the left. I myself wasn't even very interested in it until I started to see the world's most obvious and transparent cover-up take place. Until I watched Pam Bondi say that the files were on her desk and suddenly say that they weren't on her desk. Until I watched Donald Trump throw every distraction under the sun in front of us to avoid having to discuss Epstein. So even if you weren't particularly moved by the Epstein stuff before, you don't lose points because you become interested when a cataclysmic update comes out that suddenly implicates the sitting president of the United States. If a fire erupts and engulfs a house on your street, you're not going to go around to your neighbors lecturing them on coming out now because you were the only one who cared when the fire was small. But I actually want to talk about this point. If the Democrats had anything damaging on Trump, why wouldn't they release it? And the answer is simple. The Democrats didn't have anything. The DOJ has the Epstein files. And I'm old enough to remember way back when presidents did not instruct the DOJ on what to do. In fact, any correspondence between a president and an attorney general used to be such a major scandal that it would warrant months of hand-wringing. Bill Clinton wasn't even president anymore, and his minutes-long meeting with Loretta Lynch was the subject of breathless coverage on right-wing media. But now, Trump effectively instructs his attorney general on what to do, and because she is an appendage of Trump, she listens, and yet it's crickets from the right. Apparently, it's only a scandal when Democrats, even ones who are out of office, do it. But that raises a valid question. Why didn't Merrick Garland release them? Well, his goal in life seemed to be avoiding the optics of politicization. This is a guy who didn't even bother investigating Donald Trump's January 6th incitement until years into Biden's term. And even then, it was through a special counsel. If the moment called for a warrior for blind justice, Merrick Garland was basically akin to my dog on the 4th of July. So clearly, his focus was not offering up any optics of politicization as opposed to seeing justice done regardless of the subject of his prosecution. The wrong man for the moment, one whose lack of decisive leadership will go down in history, leaving us collectively less safe and less prosperous and less democratic. So if you're asking why he didn't release the files, I wish I could tell you, but that's a question only for Merrick Garland and Merrick Garland alone.
And this is where Brian Tyler Cohen really shines and Jim Jordan starts to collapse completely. You have the DOJ that is holding these files. No Democrats whatsoever are holding these files, right? This is something, like what Brian Tyler Cohen is saying, is completely Garland's fault.
But the reality is that while Merrick Garland was too timid, Trump himself promised to release those files. As did, by the way, Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, among others. This was their issue, to their credit, which makes it even worse that they're engaged in a cover-up right now. Was it bad that the Democrats didn't release the files? Yes, it sure was. But Republicans ran on doing what the Democrats wouldn't do. And so what does it say? That they're not only just as bad as Merrick Garland, but they're just as bad and they lied to their base for their votes with no intention of following through. And on top of all of that, we already know that Trump is implicated in all of this. He is in the files. Pam Bondi told him months ago that he was in the files, resulting in a massive cover-up that we're witnessing right now. I'd venture to say that all of that is a hell of a lot worse than anything Merrick Garland did or didn't do. And one more point here. Jim Jordan mentions that they'd released the whole Maxwell transcript, which I presume is about her conversation with Trump Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, where she says this.
As far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never.
Well, case closed. I guess if the known sex trafficker and pedophile who knows that the only person in America who can give her a pardon is the same guy who she can absolve right now by saying that he did nothing wrong, says that, what choice do we have but to believe her? I mean, dear God, at this point, even Jim Jordan's own supporters have to be insulted at how dim, simple, and stupid he treats them. I mean, hell, even Republican Chris Christie is clear-eyed about what's happening here.
Well, look, you know, we talked about this, Sarah and I talked about this with you a few weeks back. When you go in there like that to a person who, she might as well have taken out Donald Trump or President Trump and said, the man who can pardon me has never done anything wrong. The man who can pardon me has always been wonderful. I commend the man who can pardon me for being reelected. Look, Ghislaine Maxwell recruited 15, 16-year-old girls to be sex slaves to Jeffrey Epstein. And she was convicted of that in federal court. Why should we believe a damn thing Ghislaine Maxwell's to say about anyone?
But again,
And there it is, you guys, the final nail in the coffin. Fox News wanting to use Maxwell's words as an actual authority, it wanting to, convince the people that, hey, even though she's the guilty one, we should believe everything that she says, especially whenever she says that Trump is pardoned, right? We should definitely believe everything. And look, I don't know what to believe anymore, you guys. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. It's another day in the progressive way.